Like clockwork, Terrifier 3 is opening up to headlines about the premieres seeing walkouts, people throwing up, an ambulance being at the scene. And my first thought was that this is like the third Terrifier movie. Shouldn't people know at this point that they're entering a relentless, slap-happy gore fest? But then I found out that the screening that they said like 9 people walked out of was advertised as a mystery Christmas movie that people could attend for free. There were elderly people in there, so protect all your grandparents from suspicious-looking, bloody, disgusting sponsored screenings. But ethical marketing practices aside, I find the Terrifier franchise genuinely really inspiring, going from what I think is a straight-up bad first movie to a sequel that is one of my favorite horror films in recent years, a grindhouse slasher epic with retro fantasy aesthetics and real characters you can latch onto, that was crowdfunded, made for $250,000, and grossed $15 million at the box office. I saw Terrifier 3 at the world premiere at Fantastic Fest. Hype was high. There were no walkouts that I saw, at least, because everyone kind of knew what they were getting into, but I did see it with some people who absolutely hated this movie. So it's already become clear that if you are not a Terrifier fan, if you think the gratuitous violence and excess is artistically hollow and offensive, Terrifier 3 will not change your mind. In fact, it will probably make you hate it even more. And if you've never seen a Terrifier film, don't start with this one. Go back and watch the first one or second one and come back. And I think there's a third group of people who thought the second one was decent. You're intrigued by the third film, but you don't know if you want to go see it in theaters or see it at all. And as a fan, not a loyalist 5 stars no matter what fan, but a fan, I think that this is a step down from the second film, but there's a lot to enjoy here as well. The biggest question for me going into this one was where this movie would go with the lore. We got such an interesting story set up in the second one. What's up with the magical sword? How is Sienna and Jonathan's dad involved in this? And I left this movie with even more questions than I had going in. Basically, we skip 5 years into the future, which Damien Leone has said was just done because Elliot Fulham grew up so much, but Jonathan is in college trying to move on. Sienna has been institutionalized but is released to stay with her aunt and uncle and young cousin Gabby. Everyone is popping pills, medication in this franchise. They're so traumatized, and they're about to get even more traumatized because Art has returned, as was teased in the sequel. Art the Clown has become a modern horror icon, even if he's a little bit more niche, and I'd say that he is scarier than ever in this film. Damien Leone said that he wanted to go more towards the brutal edge of the first film, and I'm so impressed by David Howard Thornton's performance as this character. It is definitely more demanding than other villains like Michael Myers or Ghostface because he has to be so expressive with his face. Like, I get tired doing videos and he's doing this big threatening smile for hours on end. His physicality is so important, his comedic timing, and being able to commit these violent acts but still charm the audience in that demented sort of way. And I think Sienna is one of the coolest final girls of the last decade. Lauren Levera is so good. I saw her walking around Fantastic Fest and was like... But what surprised me is how significant of a role Vicky plays in this one, which I don't think was a bad idea. She is very creepy. Samantha Scafidi kills it, and they make this depraved Joker and Harley Quinn-esque pairing. But I think her inclusion ultimately ends up overshadowing what was so great about the second film, which is this palpable connection between Art and Sienna. It sacrifices most of that storyline with her dad to go into something more supernatural or demonic. Like, the little pale girl from the second film is no longer here because I guess Vicky is now harboring that entity and that evil. So says Damien Leone. So not a spoiler, and it's not out of nowhere, but it just doesn't smoothly continue what the franchise was exploring. Because it is more of this general evil, it strips away some of that personal intrigue and connection to the characters that was so interesting. Sienna and Jonathan's relationship is also more peripheral here, as Sienna forms a bond with her cousin Gabby, and it's nice, it's sweet, you can follow it all, but it all left me really unsatisfied. It felt like we were just ignoring these really big pieces of the sequel that never got seen through. There are also some whack decisions made with certain characters, one really big one that you'll know that I'm just not so sure about. And of course we have the gore, maybe the real star of the show. Again, if the gore is not your thing, this one does not go any less hard than the other films, but I don't think any of them quite get to the level of the alley bedroom kill in the first one. I don't even know if I can show that on YouTube, but if you've seen it, it is permanently seared into your skull. People have, I think, been up in arms about some violence towards children in this one, and yeah, the child body count is greater than 0, but this wouldn't be the Terrifier franchise if anything was off limits, and it does show some restraint with the children. The implications are dark, but it's off camera. The practical effects, of course, continue to be amazing. There's a Psycho-inspired shower scene that's getting some commotion. I think that one is the closest it gets to the alley scene, and it kind of reads as a direct response to some criticisms Damien Leone has received about the first film. Or maybe it's just a self-reference, but he's definitely made it clear that no one is safe from being brutalized in Terrifier films, men and women alike. There's also a kill inspired by an old method of torture that I thought was fun. Many great moments to shout out. A lot of contempt for exploitative true crime podcasters, which is always welcome. But I have to say, my favorite scene is the one where Art meets Santa in a bar. It is just like so fun. David Howard Thornton is so funny. That scene in itself works as like an awesome little mini comedy sketch. I also love the aesthetic of this one. The Christmas theme is super fun. It's gorgeous. It has this nice texture and grain to it that helps the gore feel more real, and the whole thing just feel oddly cozy and atmospheric in contrast. There are even 2 split diopter shots. I was like, no fucking way. I do think Damien Leone could benefit from bringing someone in to help him edit or co-write in the future. He's done so much work for these films, writing, directing, editing, even doing the sound design himself, which is so admirable. But where with Terrifier 2, I think people just thought it was long and some scenes could have been cut down. This one is shorter, but the story is way less focused. So though I think it finds a good rhythm going between kill sequences and story beats, the narrative might still lose some people's interest along the way. He actually talked about being sure to cut this one down compared to the sequel, and there is a 2.5-hour extended cut of this that he said he wouldn't mind releasing. I really recommend watching some of Damien Leone's interviews, especially one that Screen Rant recently did for Terrifier 3. He's very self-aware as a filmmaker, and I thought it was so interesting how he talked about Terrifier's unique place in the genre as presenting like a typical slasher, but because of how Art goes about his craft, the gore and detail of what he does is the main event, and the kill sequences are so much longer than they are for like Michael Myers that if he wants to do that and have a story, it just naturally extends the entire runtime. That doesn't negate the issues that I had with this one, but something to think about that I think applies more to Terrifier 2. So where do we go from here? Because again, I am left with more questions than answers after seeing this, but we are confirmed for a Terrifier 4. Damien Leone has said that he knows how this entire story is eventually going to end, and maybe even the shot that it's going to end on. So maybe we'll wrap back around to the mystery that the sequel was exploring, and this was just a little Christmas special. Given how this one ends, that might be a bit of a pipe dream, I don't know, but I personally would watch 20 of these. I think they've carved out such a cool place in the genre, and I think I'm going to give Terrifier 3 3 out of 5 stars. I had a good time overall, but unfortunately I do think this is a step down from 2. The lore and the story get more convoluted rather than sticking that landing from the sequel. But if you're a Terrifier fan, absolutely check it out. I think it's worth seeing in theaters, see what your crowds are gonna be like. But let me know your thoughts on Terrifier 3 and the Terrifier franchise, guys. Let me know if you plan on checking it out this weekend. Don't forget to like and subscribe and keep an eye out for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.